Warm light spread across the wide road, turning the Nevada desert into a pale gold sea. It shimmered off the highway, and the air felt dry enough to crack. Claire Donovan squinted through the windshield, trying to ignore the warning light blinking on her dashboard. She gripped the steering wheel tighter. Her daughter Lily sat in the back seat, humming softly to a tune only she seemed to know. Their car slowed, shuddered once, and then stopped completely. Claire pressed the ignition again. Nothing. The engine made a small sound, then silence. She tried once more, hoping against logic that it would start if she wished hard enough. It did not. She leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes for a second. They were supposed to reach Lake Tahoe by afternoon. She had promised Lily a holiday, a simple one, after months of missed weekends and nights spent at her office desk. It had taken her weeks to plan this escape, and now it seemed to be falling apart on a lonely desert road. Lily looked up. "Mom, are we stuck?" Her tone was curious, not yet worried. "Just a small problem," Claire said, forcing a calm smile she did not feel. "We'll get going again soon." She reached for her phone, but the screen stayed dark. Battery dead. Of course it was. She let out a quiet breath. Claire had built a company from scratch, managed dozens of employees, negotiated deals worth millions. But a broken car in the middle of nowhere was suddenly her biggest challenge. The road around them was empty, only the sound of the wind whispering across the sand. Then, in the distance, a faint rumble broke the silence. A truck, old and covered with dust, came into view. It slowed as it neared the stopped SUV. Claire felt a flicker of both relief and caution. A man stepped out of the truck. He wore jeans, a faded shirt, and a cap that had seen better days. His boots touched the hot road with the easy weight of someone used to long hours of work. He looked 30-something, tall, with brown hair, touched by sunlight, and eyes that carried a quiet steadiness. "You need help, ma'am?" he called, his voice steady and a little warm from the heat. Claire hesitated, but then nodded. "Yes." The car just stopped. "I don't know what's wrong." He smiled slightly. "Let's see what's under the hood." As he lifted the hood, hot air burst upward. Steam hissed softly. He leaned forward, inspecting with practiced motions. Claire watched, unsure what to do. He moved with certainty, the way someone moves when they understand every sound a machine makes. "Looks like your radiator's leaking," he said after a moment. "No wonder the engine quit. Kit overheated? Can it be fixed here?" she asked. "Not completely, but I can patch it enough to get you to town. There's a shop just 10 miles back." "Thank you," Claire said quickly, the weight in her chest easing a little. He looked up then, meeting her eyes for the first time. "I'm Ethan Brooks, mechanic in Ridgeville. Guess you found the worst spot to break down. Lucky I passed by." "Claire," she said, offering her name before she could stop herself. "Claire Donovan. And this is my daughter Lily." Lily waved from the back seat. Ethan grinned. "Hi there, Lily. You did the right thing, staying calm." Lily beamed. Claire, watching them, felt an unexpected warmth. Maybe it was just relief, or maybe it was something she hadn't felt in a long time, trust in a stranger. Ethan went back to work, hands quick and sure as he fixed the leak temporarily. Every now and then he explained what he was doing in simple words, as if to keep them both included. Claire found herself listening, surprised at how much patience he had. Within 30 minutes, the engine coughed back to life. The sound was uneven but alive again. "All right," he said, wiping his hands on a small cloth. "That should hold you till we reach town." Claire smiled, the tension in her shoulders finally lifting. "You really saved us." Ethan shrugged, but there was kindness in his grin. "Just doing what I do. You can follow me back. The shop isn't far." As they drove behind his old truck, Claire felt the corners of her heart soften. The sun had dropped lower, tinting the sky with rose and amber. She glanced at Lily, who looked peaceful again, cuddling her favorite toy. The drive to Ridgeville was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the sight of the truck ahead, small but steady. For the first time in weeks, Claire felt something different from exhaustion. She felt as if life had just given her a pause, a small breath, right when she needed it most. She had no idea that this strange day in the desert, starting with frustration, would turn into the beginning of something that would gently change every part of her world. The town of Ridgeville rested at the edge of the desert, small but alive, with the quiet rhythm of people who knew each other by name. The late afternoon sun painted the sky orange as Claire followed Ethan's truck down the main street. They passed a few old buildings with faded paint, a diner with a neon sign that flickered, and a park where children chased each other around a small fountain. Ethan stopped in front of a plain garage with a sign that read Brooks Auto Repair. A tall dog barked from behind a fence near the side door and wagged its tail when Ethan called its name. Claire parked and stepped out of her SUV. The air smelled of oil, dust, and a faint sweetness from the bakery across the road. "Give me an hour or two," Ethan said as he opened the garage door. "I'll check the whole system to make sure it is safe for a longer drive." Claire nodded, brushing a bit of hair from her face. "We can wait. Is there a place nearby where we could grab something to eat?" Ethan pointed down the street. "The Silver Spoon Diner is just 2 blocks away. Best cherry pie in the state, or so they say." Lily's eyes lit up. "Can we go, Mom? I like pie." Claire smiled. "I think you just earned us a treat, sweetheart." Before they left, Ethan said, "The town fair's set up in the park tonight. If you're still here when I'm done, you should check it out. Nothing fancy, but the lights make the whole place look like fireworks on the ground." Claire thanked him and took Lily's hand. They walked to the diner, their steps crunching on sun-warmed gravel. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of coffee and baked bread. Red booths lined the walls, and an older woman behind the counter greeted them with cheerful warmth. Claire ordered a sandwich and lemonade while Lily enjoyed a slice of cherry pie bigger than her plate. For the first time in months, their conversation was not about meetings, homework, or schedules. They talked about small things: the size of the fair, the color of the waitress's earrings, the way sunlight made their lemonade look like gold. When they returned to the garage, Ethan was bent over the SUV again. Sweat darkened his shirt at the shoulders, but his expression was calm. "Everything's almost ready," he said, straightening up. "I had to replace a small part. After that, you'll be good to go." Lily wandered near the friendly dog, laughing softly when it licked her fingers. Claire stood near Ethan, watching him work with focus. "You must enjoy this kind of work," she said. He nodded. "I do. I grew up here. My dad ran this shop before me. It's a small place, but I like helping people fix what's broken." Claire looked around. Tools hung neatly on the walls. A radio played a faint tune, and sunlight filtered through dusty windows. It all felt different from her glass-walled office and endless conference calls. There was a peace here she had almost forgotten existed. "So what do you do?" he asked kindly. "I run a tech company in San Francisco," she said. "Software design. Keeps me busy most days." He smiled a little. "That sounds like a big world." "It is," she replied. "Sometimes too big." Ethan finished tightening a bolt and closed the hood. "All set now. You can head out tonight if you like, but the fair's starting soon. Lily might like it. And you both deserve some fun after the day you've had." Claire hesitated. The responsible voice in her head said she should get back on schedule. But another voice, quiet yet persistent, whispered that maybe for once she could let the evening pass without a plan. "Can stay for a bit," she said lightly. Lily cheered and clapped her hands. When the sun dipped and lights began to sparkle over the town park, they walked together toward the fair. The smell of popcorn, grilled corn, and cotton candy filled the air. Children ran in circles, teenagers laughed over games, and a band played in the center under strings of glowing bulbs. Ethan found them near a small booth throwing beanbags at tin cans. He smiled and handed Lily a ticket. "Think you can knock them down?" Lily took aim, her small arm steady, and knocked down 2 cans. The man running the booth handed her a stuffed bear with a red bow. "You're good at this," Ethan said, pretending to look impressed. Lily giggled and hugged the toy tightly. As the music played, Claire and Ethan stood to the side, watching the crowd. "I can't remember the last time I went to something like this," she said softly. "People forget simple things," Ethan answered, "but they're the things that make life feel full again." She looked at him then, really looked. There was nothing polished or rehearsed in his words, just honesty. His presence felt grounded, real, something steady she had been missing. When night deepened, strings of light swayed gently in the wind and the air cooled. Claire realized she was smiling without effort. She had started the day filled with tension and frustration. Now she felt light, open, almost young again. Ethan walked them back to the shop to pick up their car. The road stretched long ahead, but Claire lingered a little before unlocking the door. Something about leaving felt heavier than it should. Ethan's eyes met hers once more as he said, "Safe travels, Claire." "Thank you for everything," she said quietly. He nodded, his smile soft. As they drove away, Lily hugged the little bear and said, "Mom, today was fun." Claire looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time in a long while, she agreed without needing to think at all. The next morning brought a clear sky and cooler air. The golden hills near Ridgeville glowed gently in the early light. Claire woke in the small motel room beside Lily, who still slept curled up with the stuffed bear Ethan had helped her win. They had planned to drive out early, but something inside Claire was not ready to rush. The thought of facing traffic and emails and long meetings felt heavy again. She told herself they could stay one more day, just to rest. After breakfast, they walked to the garage to see Ethan. He was already working on another car, sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands. He looked up when he saw them and smiled. "Morning. I thought you two were on your way to Tahoe." "We decided to take a little break," Claire said. "Lily loves this town, and honestly, so do I." He laughed softly. "Well, Ridgeville doesn't get many visitors, but you picked a good time. There's a small market today by the square. Handmade things, local food. You'd like it?" Lily tugged on her mother's hand. "Can we go, please, Mom?" Claire nodded, feeling her heart lift again. "Yes, we can go." They spent the morning at the market. The air smelled of roasted nuts and cinnamon. Stalls were filled with bright scarves, pottery, and jars of honey. A man played a slow guitar song near the fountain, and people moved lazily from one table to the next. Ethan joined them later, carrying 2 lemonades. He handed one to Claire and said, "You look like you're starting to relax." "I might be," she admitted. "I didn't realize how badly I needed a pause." They walked together through the stalls, while Lily looked at handmade jewelry. Ethan told her stories about growing up here, fixing bikes and cars since he was 10. His father had taught him everything he knew about engines and about doing the right thing when no one was watching. Claire listened quietly, touched by the simplicity and warmth in his voice. She told him a little about her own life, about running a company that built education software for schools. She spoke about endless deadlines, highs and lows, and the strain of being both a leader and a mother. Ethan listened with real attention. He did not interrupt or give advice. He just listened. "That sounds like a lot to carry," he said finally. "Sometimes the strongest people forget to breathe." His words stayed with her for the rest of the day. They sat later at a small picnic table eating sandwiches from a food stall. Lily fed tiny crumbs to a pigeon that had wandered close. Claire felt oddly safe in that ordinary moment. Ethan's presence was easy and kind, as if he understood the quiet parts of her that she rarely showed anyone. When the afternoon turned to evening, they walked back to the garage again. The air smelled of dust and sunset. Ethan checked the SUV once more to make sure it would handle the drive easily now. "So you'll be heading out tomorrow?" he asked. His tone was light, but something in his eyes said he would miss them. "I think so," Claire said. "Lily has school soon, and I will. Work has a way of finding me." Ethan leaned against the doorframe, wiping his hands with a rag. "You built something impressive. Don't forget, even engines need rest to run right." She smiled. "I'll try to remember that." Just then, Lily ran up, holding a small flower she had picked, and handed it to him. "For fixing the car and for helping us," she said sweetly. He bent down and took it like a treasure. "Thank you, Lily. I'll keep it right here," he said, tucking it behind his ear and making her laugh. That night, Claire sat outside the motel while Lily slept. The town was quiet, except for the sound of crickets and a radio somewhere playing a soft tune. She thought about Ethan, about his calmness, about the life he seemed content with. There was no rush in him, no hunger for power or praise. He worked with his hands and seemed to find purpose in helping others. She wondered when she had last felt that kind of peace in her own life. The next morning came too soon. Claire loaded their bags into the SUV, while Lily chatted happily about pancakes. Ethan was already outside his shop when they drove up. He walked over to make sure they were all ready for the trip. "Everything looks good," he said, checking the tires and giving a thumb up. Claire looked at him, wanting to say more than thank you, but not sure how. "You've been very kind. Ethan, I won't forget this town." "I'm glad you broke down here and not somewhere worse," he said with a half-smile. You and Lily brought a bit of life to the place. For a brief second, they stood in silence. There were things both of them wanted to say but didn't. Finally, Claire reached out her hand and he shook it, his palm warm and strong. As she drove away, Ridgeville disappeared in the mirror, small and sunlit. Lily waved out the window until Ethan's figure became a dot in the distance. Claire felt her throat tighten. She had not expected a few days in a small desert town to change how she saw the world, but it had. She knew she was leaving something behind, something gentle and true. Something that might find its way back into her life when she least expected it. The road stretched wide before them as Claire and Lily drove away from Ridgeville. The desert soon gave way to long open roads and thin lines of trees. The sky was clear, but the air inside the car felt heavy with silence. Lily held her bear close and looked out of the window. Claire kept her hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead, yet her thoughts stayed behind in that small-town garage and the man who had saved their trip. She wanted to think about work or the meetings waiting for her in the city. But her mind kept returning to Ethan, his quiet smile, his easy way of listening, the calm that surrounded him like sunlight on clear water. She had not meant to think of him this much, but she could not stop. Something in her chest felt both full and hollow at the same time. By the time they reached San Francisco, the streets were busy and loud again. The tall buildings seemed to swallow the sky. Claire parked in her usual spot and helped Lily carry their bags upstairs. Their apartment looked spotless, cold and perfect, just as she had left it. Yet it somehow felt smaller than before. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Claire opened her laptop to check emails. Dozens waited for her response. Budgets, new proposals, project issues. She began typing replies, but her focus drifted. Her mind played back the sound of wrenches clinking in Ethan's garage, the way he had looked at her car like a puzzle he could solve. She thought about how free Lily had laughed at the fair, and how long it had been since she had herself felt that kind of joy. Days passed quickly. The rhythm of her life resumed, filled with constant pressure. Yet nothing felt quite the same. It was as if all her success and comfort had lost color. At the office, her team noticed her silence. She was polite but distant. During lunch breaks, she found herself looking out the window, thinking of desserts and sunsets. One afternoon, while going through reports, she saw a note that made her pause. A supply proposal mentioned a new branch expansion site based in Nevada. The location was not far from Ridgeville. She felt her heartbeat change. The project had been in discussion before, but she had not been sure where to open the new branch. Now the answer came to her without question. That night, after Lily's bedtime story, Claire looked at her sleeping girl and whispered, "What if we could build something new, not just for work, but for life?" The thought gave her courage. She drafted plans until well past midnight, including details of research, local partnerships, and workshop facilities. As she listed possible collaborators, her mind stopped at one name, Ethan Brooks. She remembered his steady hands and practical mind. He might not have a degree or city experience, but he understood machines better than anyone she had met. He could see solutions others missed. Without overthinking, she wrote his name at the top of the contact list. The next morning, she printed the offer and placed it inside an envelope. It said he had inspired her idea for the new branch, and she wanted him to be part of it. She called it both a business proposal and an invitation to shape something meaningful. Her hand trembled slightly when she signed her name. In Ridgeville, the sun rose over the mountains as Ethan opened his garage for another ordinary day. And she wanted him to lead the mechanical part of the project. Her note ended with a line that made him stand still by the open door of his garage. She had written, "This is not just a thank you, it is to build something for tomorrow." Ethan folded the letter with care. The desert wind moved across the road outside, carrying dust and sunlight. His father's old wrench hung beside the door. He looked at it and smiled. He knew his father would have been proud to see him at a new beginning.
Because even though she had left, she had not really gone.
He could see a shared dream forming like a road between desert and city. And for the first time in years, he looked at the horizon and saw a future that stretched far beyond the garage walls. The new building near Ridgeville stood tall under the bright blue sky. Its walls were made of clean silver metal and clear panels that caught the desert light. The air smelled of fresh paint and warm dust. Inside the open hall, machines hummed softly while new workers unloaded boxes of tools. The sign out front read, Donovan Brooks Innovation Lab. It was the place where Claire's dream and Ethan's hands had joined at last. Months had passed since her letter. When Ethan accepted the offer, Claire returned to Ridgeville with Lily to start the project. She bought land near the small hills, close to where the air moved freely. She wanted a place that mixed city design with desert calm. The lab was not just for engines, but for ideas. She wanted her company to create technology that helped people in real and lasting ways. Ethan planned how the machines would run, how the space would stay practical but full of life. He worked with his old tools beside new equipment that had just arrived from the city. The mix of old and new fit perfectly. Every morning, Ethan came early, unlocking the main doors before sunrise. He checked each machine and spoke with the young team from the city. They respected his quiet way of teaching. He never raised his voice. He simply showed them how a good tool responded when treated with care. Claire often arrived later, carrying her laptop and a cup of coffee. She wore jeans most days now and tied her hair back. She still had meetings and plans, but she worked differently. She asked people's opinions, smiled more, and seemed lighter. When their eyes met across the workshop, an understanding passed between them, no need for many words. Lily spent her afternoons around the lab, chasing the dog Ethan had rescued from the street. She studied small motors under his guidance, and sometimes surprised everyone by finding small problems before the adults did. Her laughter filled the big space and gave it warmth. She called Ethan Professor Fix-It, and he pretended to take the title seriously, saluting her each time she solved a puzzle. One evening, near the end of a long workday, Claire stood outside with Ethan as the sun went down behind the hills. The light hit the metal walls, turning them to gold. The desert wind moved lightly through her hair. She looked at the building, and then at him. "It feels strange," she said. "All I used to care about were numbers and reports. Now I look at this place and think about people, about what it means to truly build something." Ethan crossed his arms and watched her with quiet pride. "You built more than a place," he said. "You built hope. You gave this town a reason to wake up again." She smiled. "I could not have done it without you." He shook his head. "You would have done something amazing no matter what. You just needed a reminder that you didn't have to do it alone." They stood in steady silence as workers finished for the day and locked up. A few stayed behind to weld parts for a test car. The sound of sparks echoed faintly. Claire noticed how the lab lights reflected in Ethan's eyes. She thought of all the turns that had led her a broken engine, a small-town fair, a letter sent in faith. Weeks turned into months. The lab's work grew known across the state. Porters visited, curious about the new kind of company that joined business skill and honest labor. Claire handled the interviews with grace, always giving credit to Ethan and the team. He disliked the attention, preferring to stay in the garage section, fixing engines or guiding apprentices, but he still smiled each time he heard her mention his name proudly. Their partnership deepened in quiet ways. They began to meet outside work, sharing dinners in the nearby diner or walking along the old fairground where they had first gone together. Lily treated those evenings as little celebrations, always eager to sit beside Ethan and listen to his stories about town folklore. Claire's laughter came easily now.
Ow.
The sharp edges she once carried had softened into something bright and kind. Over time, everyone noticed how well they fit together. They never announced what they were to each other, but no one needed an answer. Claire's car often stayed parked outside Ethan's garage at night. And in the morning, both of them would arrive together, smiling like people who had found something rare. On the first anniversary of the lab's opening, the entire town gathered to celebrate. Lights hung across the park, the same park where the fair had been. Music played, and children ran around with balloons. Claire gave a short speech thanking the community. When she finished, Ethan stepped onto the small stage beside her and said simply, "This place was built by heart and hard hands. It gave me back the joy I thought I lost." His voice caught slightly, and when he looked at her, her eyes glistened. After the applause quieted, he bent down and whispered to her, "You once said I fixed your car. Truth is, you fixed my future." Claire reached for his hand, and for a moment the noise of the crowd faded. The sun set behind the mountains, casting warm light over everyone. Lily ran up and hugged them both, smiling as if she understood more than anyone else. That night, when the lights dimmed and music drifted softly across the desert, Ethan and Claire stood together by the lab that glowed faintly in the distance. It was a promise made real, a story built from kindness, chance, and courage. They had both saved each other in their own way, and the future, once uncertain, now stretched wide before them, steady as the open road that had first brought them together.